Hello and welcome to another episode of How to Be a Great Player. Well, due to several very well structured arguments that were presented on the YouTube channel by some of our most loyal fans, I have decided to do this video on how to play a loner type character. Now, in the past, I have been particularly harsh of the loner archetype and have strenuously suggested that you avoid the loner type like the plague. Well, as I said, I have had my mind changed by several of the viewers who have written in to most vociferously argue the point that the loner has a place in the party. So, what has changed my mind? To begin with, if we look at the keywords of the loner, they are aloof and self-sufficient. Again, both of those qualities initially look as if they are detrimental to party play. It reminds one of an individual who works alone, is self-sufficient, and is cagey about any information they might have received. How does that fit into a party? Well, I was given several very good examples. Simply because they're self-sufficient, not self-efficient, self-sufficient doesn't necessarily mean that they don't need the help of the party. Oftentimes, they will need the help of the party to get to a place where they can then prove themselves capable in an individual space. Where does that leave us in terms of roleplay? Well, there is a class that frequently pops up in roleplay that finds it very difficult to play with others, and that's the rogue. Unless you're playing with a whole collection of rogue-type individuals, you're always going to have a paladin clunking around in heavy armor, some cleric screaming out incantations of the divine, and some kind of bard yodeling his lungs out. How does the rogue then make most of the opportunity of, say, sneaking or hiding or moving around gathering information without being detected? So this is where the self-sufficient type that represents the loner could be useful. Working together with the party, using the solver to come up with the plan, using the ambassador to negotiate with the protector and with the dependable that it's okay for the individual to go off on their own, and under the instructions of the leader, a loner type character or a lone type character might benefit by being able to go off and then solve the problem at the base level on their own without the interference of the rest of the group. That's one way that a loner could be useful. Notice, however, though, that there is a couple keywords in that sentence. By working with the party, by listening to the party's reasoning, by following through on some of the instructions that the leader has given, the loner type character is then free to operate on their own. They have to be able to be controlled by the group. If they're constantly ignoring the leader, not caring about the protector, and just blindsiding the ambassador by doing exactly the opposite to what they agreed to do, then the loner starts to become a problem. If they work with the party, though, and know their place, then the loner starts to make sense. The aloof part speaks to non-communication, which in a party is almost detrimental to the health of the party. If our lone character has discovered some ancient secrets buried in the library, or has discovered a clue that will lead to the destruction of the enemy Death Star, we need to share that information. So how does an aloof character work? An aloof character works by being aloof to NPCs, not to the party. Aloof characters keep things close to their chests, and they don't like sharing. Once the party has established itself and there is a sense of trust between all of the party members, your loner should find one or two of them within the party that they trust implicitly and will open up to and will talk to. Perhaps it's the solver. I have found out this information. Is it valuable to you? Perhaps it's the protector. I know you want to keep the princess safe, so let me tell you what I have found. In other words, if you are playing a loner type character where you want to have this air of mystery about you, by all means, keep information to yourself and only one or two fellow members of the party. You don't have to share it with everybody. You don't have to make grand speeches. You don't have to come to the party table and say, this is what I have found and this is what I have found. But you can quietly call aside your trusted confidant and let them know what you have found. The loner is, therefore, a very interesting character to play, almost from a metagaming point of view, rather than from an actual gaming point of view. Yes, you need to have enough skills to be able to go off on your own and complete whatever objective your party has decided needs to be completed. On the other hand, you need to be able to overcome the loner part, the I'm not talking to anybody part, by ingratiating your character with one or two individuals who will be your mentors, your nominees, your support within the party. Why should we have that character? They're always going off on their own, says the protector, who's frustrated because he can't protect our female rogue who runs around doing whatever it is that she's doing. The ambassador should pipe in. If our rogue has confided in the ambassador, she is a valuable asset. We should give her enough space to operate. But of course, rein her back in again when she has extended herself to dangerous spaces. So as a role player, you're going to have to work with the group by not working with the group, if that makes sense. You're going to have to convince the leader that it is more valuable for you to go off on your own than it is for the entire party to go off on their own. And here's the critical part. How do you convince the party that it is best for you to go off on the adventure and for them to sit at home? By finding alternative adventures for them to go on. The GM has a plan, and that plan involves the whole party. When you try to supersede that plan by going off on your own to disarm all of the traps or to break into that secret cryptic digital vault all on your own because you're the best hacker in the world, you need to come up with some kind of answer for what the rest of the players should be doing. Whilst I am disabling all of these traps, perhaps it would be prudent if you were to secure the area, scout out around the other part of the area, do a complete weapons check, look for secret doors while I'm not here. Don't try and open them because the traps might kill you. That kind of thing. So you've got a much, much more complex task than any of the other types, because the other types naturally will want to work together. You are trying to convince them to work together and apart at the same time. Another point to wrap your mind around is the loner has a responsibility to be able to act independently, but does not have a requirement to do so. What do I mean by that? Well, the responsibility of the character to act alone means that when the party is in deadlock, the soul is busy concerning themselves that perhaps there's not enough beauty in the battle, or perhaps the creature is not worthy an adversary because it won't make a good song. The protector is worried about the defense of the party. The leader is stuck between the ambassador and the solver who've just not given him anything. The loner is then required to take that first step into oblivion. So whilst the party is disabled through dialogue, the rogue is then required to go off. The rogue, the loner, is then required to go off and kickstart the whole thing. They are the catalyst, if you like. They need to make sure, though, that there's enough left to be done by the rest of the party that they don't sit back going, well, if the rogue is done, again, I say the rogue must be the loner. Clearly, that's how my head is working. The loner must have left stuff to be done by the rest of the party in case the loner goes off and the rest of the party goes, well, we don't have to do anything because, look, old Jones there is going to go off and solve it all on their own. So you have to constantly be looking for reasons to involve the party. You are also not required to go off on your own. don't be afraid to say, I've got to go and do this hacking, but I need you to keep me safe in case they start attacking me, and I need you to cause a distraction over there. Leader, that's as far as I can go. What can we do with the rest of the party? What else can we do to make this interesting? So you are not required to do everything on your own, even though your archetype is loner. It just means you operate in a different way. You look for opportunities and you will seize them, and you will seize them on your own, perhaps out of a sense of wanting to save the rest of the party. Well, you don't have to go into that room to look for traps. Let me do that. I am happy to operate on my own. I don't need to rely on other people's opinions or on the alignment of the stars or on whether this is what the leader wants us to do. I rely on myself. And that is, I'm hoping, in a nutshell, what convinced me that the loner has a place in the party, and for me to freely admit that I may have possibly been, with the exclusion of some facts and in general, broad strokes, wrong. Possibly. Anyway, the loner is an interesting interesting type to play because of all those complexities of being alone but not being alone, of working with the party whilst being outside the party. I hope this has perhaps encouraged you to explore that option, but to do so very carefully and to keep asking your GM and your fellow players outside of the game, are you being too much of a loner? Do they feel as if you are trying to steal the show? And to rein back a little, or to try and find more ways of including them in the future. Until next time, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you are on Patreon, or if you're thinking of supporting us on Patreon, please note that we will be using that money to build some kind of death ray that we can fire at the sun and just reduce the heat wave that our current country is currently baking under, as you can see. Until next time, happy playing.